You know, sometimes the best way to a tea's heart is through your mindfulness. Hello everyone, this is Dimitri from nannuoshan, dedicated to the spread of fine tea and tea culture worldwide. As some of you may know, my job here generally involves most of the copy text that you see on our site, on our social media, wherever there's text. I'm generally involved in writing or editing it. I do the majority of it at the moment, though we have some new staff coming on board with that as well, so some new voices are in play. But a lot of that involves in describing the tea and the teaware that we have. And as far as tea goes, that generally means drinking and turning the flavor and general experience of a tea into text. So what I want to share with you today involves a bit about how that process can occur, and how developing one's senses, as if for a description, also can help pretty much anyone in deepening their tea knowledge, their general palate and sense of taste and smell, and knowing what they like, being better able to navigate the world of tea, and as well as other foodstuffs that are very kind of gastronomically fine, let's say. And there's a lot of material out there that we have and other places have on understanding tea, understanding taste, and pointing out what to look for. And I thought it would be interesting as a kind of dichotomy to show two perspectives that get at kind of the same idea, which is eventually this description of tea, or a sort of mental understanding of the tea, or a memory of the experience, or maybe a tea journal entry if you make a log notes for your tea experiences. And those two sides are, let us say, the analytical one. That's the one that breaks down a given flavor, a given experience into its component parts, and analyzes them to be able to come up with descriptors. This has a juicy mouthfeel. This has a taste of raspberry specifically, not just any berry, but really gets at raspberry, for example. And I think this is totally useful, and I use this all the time when I'm describing teas, and when I'm trying to remember a particular one, focusing on particular details, and that helps me remember the experience. And I find it very enjoyable. It increases my enjoyment of the whole thing. Also with other people, to share the elements of what we experience, often verbalized. But there's another side to tasting, one that I think also gets at the experience in itself, if you will. And that is not so much analytical as it is, we could say mindful. I'm going to say mindful for the purposes of this. This isn't a video on specifically tea as a meditation, though that's also an interesting possibility, an interesting aspect. And if you're interested, we'll look at that. It's also a little bit different than another video which Gabriele did about an experiment on the effect of the state of the body on one's perception of tea. It's called Body and Mind, and I think it's really interesting. You should take a look and maybe recreate the experiment yourself. You may be surprised at how one's mental and physical state really affects one's perception. And that's a very valid and important as well. But today I'm going to be focusing on this kind of how to put oneself in a state where broad associations can come. One can experience the flavor and texture of tea or any similar product in a associative way. We'd call it also sort of an associative rather than an analytical experience or understanding. And the tea I have selected is one that is of a category that I very like, which is the Dancong oolongs, or Dancong, sometimes it's rendered, but not a specific tea that I'm very familiar with, and it is a Milan Xiang. Here are some of the leaves, a dark, somewhat roasted, twisted oolong from Guangdong, literally honey orchid scent. I tend to think of it as a little bit plummy usually among the Dancongs, but it's generally a really nice and enjoyable tea. But I haven't, for whatever reason, I'm not that familiar with this specific one, so I thought I would start a little bit blanker than normal. And I'm going to brew this two ways. In this video, I'm going to focus on the associative aspect. And in the next one, I'm going to analyze it and break it down a little bit more. And those aren't mutually exclusive either. As I said, I think they're two ways of getting at the same thing. And so there'll be a little bit of overlap between them. But let's get started and see how this works. So I'm already going to put this in and get, I got one which, and get started. I think the first thing when one, in general, it's nice when enjoying tea, is to always take a moment. If you're really doing gongfu cha, you have a set of utensils that you're going to use to set up the space a little bit. I've already set up my chashi, the tea table here, with some nice things that are also a little bit decorative, and kind of center oneself and just get a bearing, become mentally prepared. I should note that throughout this video I'm going to be kind of narrating a lot. It's rather, I mean, obviously you're not going to just watch me drink tea, or rather that's another kind of video. But when practicing this at home, it's perhaps obvious that it will be more useful to focus on the experience that each person is having, and if you're joined by other people, maybe the conversation for this portion or this moment takes a secondary place in importance. So I'm going to be talking a lot, but no need to take that as kind of what this experience is going to be about. Let's get started. First thing, I have my things in order. I have my Gaiwan pitcher, even though I'm just drinking alone, and a cup that I've chosen out. I like these items, and I like setting them up in a little bit of a line in this case, a little bit of color, contrast. I'm just gonna take a moment to breathe here and okay, I'm gonna drink some tea. Looking forward to drinking the tea. Thinking about the environment. It's very cold and dark Berlin day here in the middle of winter. It's quite typical. I'm a little bit, maybe a little bit chilly, and looking forward to anticipating being warmed up. And then I'm going to go straight, in this case, to the warming up. I have my tea leaves here. I've noted how they look. These dark, twisted, somewhat long leaves, medium long length. In this cold environment, it's not the aromatics aren't so particularly strong, but I always like to give the dry leaves a sniff. And indeed, there's a little bit of something kind of peachy coming off of them, and that's well, I'd never noticed that before. As I said, I usually associate Milan Xiang a little bit more with plum. It's very subjective, but that's new. But the wetting them really brings out the flavor. I'm going to give these a rinse. I also would note that probably if I'm doing this at home, I might go for a much smaller gaiwan and do and brew them in the Guangzhou style, which is a lot of leaves in a tiny gaiwan. If you want to know how to do that, we also have a little video explaining how to do that. It's very rewarding for the Dancongs and some other teas that can handle this flash brewing, have a lot of aromatics. It's very nice. But I want to choose for this gaiwans with a similar volume, even though in this case, actually I'm going to use a few more leaves probably than in the next session. I'm still going to wash out the tea. I find that a nice way to get the leaves to start open up, releasing their aromas. And the wash is actually very aromatic. Very aromatic. I'm just surprised how aromatic it is. I didn't remember this one as being so intensely perfumed. But it's really floral and fruity. And I could probably just sit here sort of all day absorbing just the scent of this this tea. But we're going to feed the Jin Chun and continue on with the proper brewing. I'm also going to smell the wet leaves because I like to. It's wonderful. Why not? Wow. The great thing about quality tea is that you get these scents and you can't but help just relax, as if the aroma moves into every little muscle of your body and just says, hey, chill, man, it's okay. This is that's the great thing. I mean, I also love like fine coffee and chocolate and wine and other things. I don't get that as much there. I could probably drink or consume finer stuff, but it's and explore more. But sometimes with these particular aromatic teas, it's just the best thing in the world. one of the best things. And in keeping with the theme here, I'm not going to very precisely time the tea. I've heated the water to 90 degrees because it generally, particularly Dancongs, are a little bit more sensitive, and it does to produce distinctly better tea in that way. But I'm kind of going to do the brewing by feeling, and I should say that it's not random. That feeling's a little bit based on similar teas and one's experience. So it helps to have tested out things for a given type of tea in different ways, and over time one builds up kind of a bit of a sense for how long to do things if you want to play it by ear, and otherwise following recommendations can be a good starting place. But we're going to do that in the next section. So here I'm just going to pour in the water. Here we go, wetting all of those leaves. I'm not going to fill it all the way. Just a little more strong. And that's quite nice. It's almost going to be a flash brewing here. Not quite. I mean, almost is a little bit of a relative term. Compared to 2 seconds, 10 or 15 is, yeah, quite a lot more. But I'm not going to do 30 or 45, which we might do for other styles. I'm going to take a moment and just appreciate what I have before me. In these pale vessels, it's a little bit easier to see here in the picture. It's a very, I'll see if that's comes out here in my extra surprise side camera. It's fairly pale, a little bit yellowy, a little bit golden, a little bit peachy in color. But still, perhaps that's a bit too much analysis. It looks nice at the moment, and it is enjoyable to look at in the first place, to feel the warmth of the vessel, to smell the aroma here. Not as strong as the wash. It really comes out all at once there. But they say the first brew is anyway more for the nose, and the second one is for the tongue. So that's quite typical of these teas, to be much more aromatic immediately. I think the first thing when approaching this more associative sense, which is the main distinction with the more at least the way I go about really analyzing and trying to break down a flavor, is to experience kind of the total tea. The whole experience is one lump, if you will, of qualia, the kind of ineffable experience that aren't really transferable or directly describable. I mean, I can say that it's warmth, that it has warmth and is warm and liquid and a little bit creamy and a little bit mineral and tannic. If I want to impart to you at home what that is like. But I think at this moment it may be better to think about, when replicating this style of tasting, more about more associations. What is the broadest kind of painting you might make? What is the most abstract version of the painting? If you are doing like a Rothko version, a Mark Rothko version of the flavor that you have in front of you, what color is it? Maybe literally thinking in terms of what color. For me, this would be, sorry not to be influenced by the yellow here, but it's a bit of, I would have to involve some pale yellowy white, but also something darker. Maybe there's some dark purple in the corner, maybe a bit of red and orange. I think it's gotta go. I think, you know what it is? I'll tell you what it is. It's like a spectrum all the way from kind of like a dark, bright green, really, all the way to some orange, passing through like yellows in the middle. Something like that. And the flavors, more concretely, it's fruity, but a bit light, a bit thin. It's very round, but has these sort of flattened edges of tannins. That's kind of the feeling as it washes through. It sort of opens in the middle and is a little bit flatter in the edges. Though, actually, to be honest, there's a bit of juiciness there on the side. And maybe that's a little bit of a different image. What I'm trying to get at is observe the tea as if a whole landscape, not a landscape as in its individual houses or trees. It's made up of the total sum of all of the visible objects and little parts of places that one can see at once. And in the same way, where you look at a landscape and you go like, wow, what a landscape. Here, I think it's nice to experience before even trying to figure out what it is and why it is so nice. If it's nice, or whatever the kind of affect is. Just the feeling of everything all together. Trying to say, hold that in your mind and remember it perhaps for later. It's a really wonderful landscape. We could move on here, however, to some other more mindful aspects. I think another important thing is a little bit of affect, emotional affect. What does it make me feel? This makes me feel both relaxed and a bit happy. Like really, wow, yeah. Yeah. It's a good feeling. And the second aspect is how it makes one feel in the body. That's sort of a little bit chi, the energy of the tea, which is can be a bit nebulous in meaning. And it's these different experiences of that, but without needing to sort of feel too beholden to pre-existing concepts. Just where is there a feeling in the body that is affected by the experience of drinking the tea? A kind of convoluted way of saying, how does it make you feel? Classic question. I'm gonna heat it up a little because we're going a little bit cold or cool there. While the water cools, boils, I'm gonna think about what is this experience? Obviously, it affects perhaps the mouth and the nose the most, the taste and olfactory stimulations there, and continues down the throat, esophagus into the stomach. And I can feel a little bit of the acid of this tea all the way in the stomach, but on the way in the whole, there's some kind of roundness there, and warmth, and a little bit juicy actually, which was not adjective I was particularly anticipating, having said it earlier. But this tea is a bit juicy. And by extension, it feels generally warming to the center. That's probably kind of some literal warmth moving out, but I want to ascribe it maybe subjectively to something of the experience, this relaxing effect that I mentioned earlier. Continue on with the second infusion. A bit more for the tongue, a little bit bitterness coming out. I don't think I'm going to do too many here, though I'm certainly not going to, never you fear, waste the leaves. As we move forward through the different infusions, though, I think it is nice to think about the differences. Again, this needn't be quite analytical, but more about just thinking about the question, what changed, what is changing as the tea sits and develops and is infused multiple times, and maybe how does one, if you can observe yourself, how do you change over the passage of drinking the tea? How do you feel about yourself differently, and how does your perception of the environment around you change? That's really nice and full. Now, I also think that finding tasting notes, specific tasting notes, can be in its own way mindful. I think it's a good mental exercise to, particularly when one gets that, ooh, I know that recognition of a taste or scent, to try and find out what it is. I found that it's really challenging at first, but for me, with the more I practice it, kind of like a muscle, the easier it is to identify the sort of generally the last time one has tasted or smelled something like that. And for me, it's this kind of fishing a little bit, or almost more fishing in the sense of fishing one's keys from a pocket or a bag, reaching down into like, oh, my fingers brushed them, I know it's in there somewhere, and trying to grasp onto that thread of memory and pull it out into consciousness. And it's really difficult to do at first, and it generally, I think it generally escapes. Which is, as we're doing here, is totally fine. And I don't think one needs to nail it down all the time. And there's many ways for any given kind of flavor to associate it. Famously, for example, banana, and one of the key flavor compounds of banana and pear is the same. And that's when you eat a real banana or a pear, it's surrounded by a bunch of other things that shift its flavor its whole flavor in one direction or another, but one of those key ones is the same. So there's many ways of associating individual little flavors that one finds. But coming back to the mindfulness aspect, I think it can be a nice exercise to try and bring those memories to the surface and acknowledge them and notice that's something that one has, and it's also a way of appreciating this experience, which does tend to bring up, as being a very olfactory experience, does tend to bring up a lot of memory and associations. For me, what I really like is when a tea brings me to a particular kind of place, one I maybe have been, or maybe just it suggests by kind of composition of different elements. It doesn't happen so much with a tea like this, lighter, floral, fruity. I tend to get that more with sort of darker, heavier tonalities, earth, wood, and maybe smoked or roasted scents. Sometimes create this composition that seems to evoke sometimes a strangely particular place, like in an attic, or like it's not that strangely particular. Let me think. Strangely particular to the degree of you're on like a kind of partially wooded area, top of some kind of hills, and it's rained like a day ago, kind of thing, where for some reason this idea comes out. That happens to me, at least, and sometimes I've heard other people also express like a place that the smell or taste is. So it needn't be limited to foods or perfumes, things that we directly, or flowers, or any things that we directly and deliberately smell or taste. Sometimes it might be something like an industrial building, always seem pleasant from the outset. So I think it's also a nice exercise to develop that ability and to sip the tea and close your eyes and try to imagine where you are if it were just based on the smell. So taking a sip, putting it down safely. It's so light and peachy. And where might I be with that? As I said, this is a little bit, it's not necessarily the best tea for that kind of thing, but I mean, all that fruitiness, it really suggests either an orchard, or, yeah, kind of an orchard. It would have to be an orchard in like full bloom, just all this pollen and stuff surrounding, filling the air with the scent of fruit flowers. I think maybe there's a few already ripening on the branches, or perhaps it's a small kitchen somewhere where people are processing or preparing, or just have loads and loads of flowers and or fruit. It could actually be a marketplace somewhere. A marketplace with all of those things. And it's kind of like a spring day maybe, clear air. There's this mineral note that kind of suggests that you breathe in there and it's really kind of clean, but it's also now here quite heavy with the sense of these flowers and fruits. Yeah, I like that image. Kind of an open market, maybe some small town, a little bit in the countryside, so this clean spring air can come in and balance out the scent of all the things around. So I find that you may be watching and thinking like, wow, that is just, you know, just made up, just pulled out of thin air, and or just a bit, you know, overly fantastical. To each their own. I like that as a way of holding on to what a tea is like, and it helps me to kind of locate it in a spectrum of places, both in memory and in being able to kind of share that experience with other people. I think I'm going to leave off with further infusions for the moment. Those are just a few of the tools, the ways that one might experience tea with more of an associative, more of a relaxed, more of an open point of view. And at the same time, it can be very helpful to developing one's sense of scent, sense of smell, sense of taste, and ability to recognize and communicate what the experience of consuming something like a rich tea is like. I hope this is useful to some of you or interesting. And that I hope you'll join me in the next segment, where we'll look at this very same tea and try to break it down a little bit more and see how these things might converge or diverge accordingly. If you've liked the video, please do give it a like and subscribe to receive new videos every week, where we're looking at all kinds of teas, TEAWARE, and every possible aspect that you could think of in relation to that. Wow, it's very relaxing. I'm a little incoherent. Yeah. Well, thanks for stopping by, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.